I understand some brands need to change and evolve, and maybe they need to position themselves in a new way for the new era. And maybe with AI, that's going to start happening now with more brands.
You're about to hear a conversation between two agency owners who collectively have over 30 years of experience helping brands sell millions of dollars. Enjoy the episode.
They're really trying to say, well, you know what, all these child molestation causes, we're not about that. We are all about inclusivity now. We are about, letting everybody, be a part of it. And people do like scouting. But do you think they're going to ever get over the whole... No sé, si quieres hablar de eso. I'm like thinking that.
But I have no context on that. Like, what's the issue? They're having like sexual harassment issues?
So Boy Scouts of America, after 100 and some years that the organization has been founded, is changing their name to Scouting America starting next year. The president... I also, when I read this to NPR, I didn't know a lot about it. I was just like, well, what are they going to change their name? It's like such an iconic name. But the thing is that they have they're changing their name because they want to add the fact that they're now it's a more inclusive name. So it's not just boys. Anybody can go scouting from girls to LGBTQ to whatever you want to segment to that. The other reason was that they are getting over bankruptcy because they had a lawsuit of over a lot, like millions of dollars. That they had a bunch of people giving them lawsuits because they have reported that they were, somehow molested or some inappropriate thing happened to them during their scouting year. So then that's where I found out that that's why they were changing their name. Because I was just like, okay, well, why are you really changing the name? Is it too of an inclusivity thing? Is it we are not just boys and girls, it's just the whole thing. But no, it's pretty much, I think that they're trying to separate themselves from what the Boy Scouts past is. And it's interesting because you do have Girl Scouts, and Girl Scouts is a very, like here in the United States, is seen as a very proper, well-organized organization where, girls have the opportunity to be empowered and to share with other girls and so on and so forth, growth, scouting and all that good stuff. But then when I hear this, I was just like, well, it's are they really need to change the name because they just carry such a luggage of just bad reputation. I also didn't know that they were bankrupt. They claimed bankruptcy a year ago or so. Because of lawsuits.
Because of lawsuits. Oh, interesting. Wow. Yeah, so they're just trying to escape the bad reputation. Basically, is what you think they're saying. I mean, in the back of, that's what they're doing in the back, but in the front they're saying we're this is like a diversity and inclusion thing.
I think it comes down to there is a place for them to exist. There are people who love the concept. Like not every kid, fortunately, not every kid got molested in Boy Scouts. If you're ever part of a Boy Scout system, you do know that there's a lot of great things that come out of it. Explore the woods, learn how to get around with a compass, check out how I can light up on fire, help the community. There's a lot of things that came down to being that, to the point of being an Eagle Scout. It's like it's kind of like a black belt in karate. It's like a badge of honor and shows discipline and so on and so forth. Mm. So there is this that a lot of people say, well, scouting did great things for me. I just feel really bad at this. But the problem is that now he got into the point as a marketer. For me, I think that he's gotten to the point that the name is so tainted, or it's just something that if you say the name, it's just not related anymore with that beautiful elements of scouting that I just mentioned. But it just comes down to that organization that used to molest kids, or they didn't accept gays in their ranks, or they didn't let they in 2015 you couldn't be a gay scout leader, and all these things just kind of started going into like an evolution of what society is now, where gender, X, Y, and Z, and all that piece. But also, I think that it's more of like, well, we're carrying such a bad name that trying to work. Hi, we are the new Boy Scouts of America. Would be like, and
Suspicious.
I think that as a marketer, I think that they have to pretty much delete name, start from scratch, and it's not from scratch, but
Yeah.
gives them an easier it gives him an easier PR battle to fight. It's like, you know what, those old ways are done. We're starting with a new name. We're starting fresh.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Scabbing.
yeah. Maybe the church should also change their name then.
Oh,
Um.
yeah. I also thought about the same thing too. I'm like, well, the Catholic Church has a lot of reputation, but then also it's been an institution that has been doing a little good and a little bad since.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's like I don't want to like talk about advising how they should do all this. I think maybe we focus on maybe rebranding for like small businesses or just business in general, maybe medium sized businesses as well, and and
I brought
when
it up.
necessary. What's that?
I brought it up with the purpose of like, when are companies that are established in the real need of changing their name?
Yeah,
When's a rebrand needed? And this is again, a lot of people do branding for recognition. You do what you're trying to do is you're trying to set up a brand so that you have an agent and you can say, well, my brand represents, you know,
yeah,
we're storytellers. This thing, you have a reason why you develop a brand, and it takes you a long time for that brand to now saying, "Hey, I heard of them before." And
yeah,
it takes development, 100 and something years. All of a sudden, that you say, "Hey, you know what? Like, I need to grab these. I need to grab this project and crumble it up and then throw it away." It's a very interesting move. I mean, it's a kind of like at a point that we prefer to not even try to save this name. We're just gonna start from scratch.
yeah. Well, I think it also depends on the size of the rebrand, right? Because some brands keep the name and they just update the logo and make it cleaner and whatnot, and some brands change a little bit. So, for example, Federal Express is now FedEx, basically. And
Yes.
next, well, they've been FedEx for a long time, so like now it means something. But they originally started as Federal Express, and then they sort of noticed, oh, it's kind of a mouthful, and it's two words, and you know,
American Express did that same thing. Now,
yeah,
don't like the logo, but what they did is that they just curved the Amex. That's what they were going for, like
yeah.
American Express.
I think I don't know. I think those kind of make sense to me. Just simplifying it so that it's easier to remember, easier for people to say. It kind of makes sense to me. I think but I do think there's a lot in corporate America about that kind of stuff, and I think it's just a lot of money down the drain, in my opinion. Right? I understand some brands need to change and evolve, and maybe they need to sort of position themselves in a new way for the new era. And maybe with AI, that's going to start happening now with more brands. They're going to be like, okay, we need to figure out a way to like, sound more innovative or sound more like in tune with the new generation. So we'll see some of that. And I think those cases make sense. But I also think there's a lot of ego there and a lot of CMOs that come into the company and say, we're going to change things. This has to change because of these reasons. And you can always justify, making the change. And it's like Warren Buffett says. He says that there are no numbers or circumstances that I'm paraphrasing, right? That will change um, a CEO's point of view if they want to buy a company. Like if the CEO or the people in charge decide they want to buy a company, the spreadsheet will always show growth, synergies, you know, I don't know, double revenue. Like increase profits, like the numbers will always show that. For like, you know what I mean? Like when you're calculating what it's going to look like and how it's going to be, like it always says that. And so, and I think in branding the same thing happens, right? Like a lot of people think, okay, we're going to change the brand and this is what it means and the symbolism and this is what we're trying to capture and this is why we're doing this and look at these focus groups. But that's like all very subjective, right? Like, but
I
you know,
I mean, if you were to say, hey, Romo, you as a branding expert, let's say, if I was to put into that position, they were like, okay, so this is our situation. We went bankrupt. There is hey, Romo, do you personally associated Boy Scouts as a child molestation rate? You call it that? I would have said no. I think that, I do know that they were bad apples, and that's pretty much it. But I didn't know that it was like a problem that was so much that they had to pay so many, so many. Like I was really unaware of how they went bankrupt and all the things. I just knew that I was like, oh, this is one of those old organizations that is just losing momentum because now kids
yeah,
do esports and are in
right.
iPads more than that. Like that was pretty much my interpretation of that. So if I were to be put into that room, and then I'm saying, okay, so are you really carrying the stigma? Like you can't think of Boy Scout without this big stain. Like you can make huge campaigns and huge leaps and bounds, kind of like what Amazon is doing with the whole, we are good to our employees. Although people were like, you can try to fight that fight, and 100-year-old plus brand might be worth that fight. But I would have said, you know what, it is better. Um, even if you change your look we're not a child molestation ring. We are, scouting of America. And you also have white boys. Like, what do you mean with boys? Can an LGBTQ be included? I remember that 2012 huge discussion about this guy who was pretty much a great scout leader, but he had to come out because he was gay. It's like, hey, you know what, everybody, how are you guys feeling about me taking a kid to an exploration? And they were like, not my kid. So it became this thing where there was just. So if I were to be in that table, I would be like, yeah, you know what, maybe Scouting of America, maybe a name change might be in place, but
Yeah.
you need to this you need to be like lit up with like a match and fire, and pretty much clear up anybody who from the old guard. You really need to make like sure that now people are going to be looking at you with a big microscope, so you have to have transparency in everything that you do and however everything that you do, and then you really need to leverage people to really help in the community and helping heal. So I think that's the other point of it too. It's like, well, you change your name and all that stuff, but and you pay your fees and you bankrupt or whatever. But I think that there's still a need for like, okay, so what else does Scouting of America does? Well, Scouting of America also helps people who have been problems of child abuse to have this type of. I'm just throwing this out there, like we support mental health in this system because.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I
oh,
mean, yeah, yeah. In that case, like they need to do something more extreme, and they have to have fundamental changes. It can't just be like a brand change.
they need a badass PR firm
Yeah,
too. That's what it was pretty good.
but in terms of like the typical business, medium size, maybe you can shorten your name and make it catchier, make it something easier to pronounce and say and remember. But I mean, I just wouldn't throw a lot of money into that. I know Airbnb did it a while back ago, and it was like this big thing, and sure, they got PR out of that and they got some attention. But, was that really necessary? Probably not. Like, you know?
The logo, I think the logo rebranding and all that stuff came when they became public. I think it was. So they had to kind of like do a whole doodle about all over it, and they create a real perfect standardization. So I do see it. This is the thing, like how stylish was Airbnb when they did the change. I think
And
not
I also,
that,
yeah,
that long. They were very popular, but it wasn't like that long into it. So they probably had in mind, hey, we need to do a better Airbnb and stuff. Do you like the logo or not?
yeah, that's yeah, super subjective. But you know what you know what's interesting? I think when you're starting out, if you're starting a new company, you could say, I'm just going to put together a logo. I'll do it with AI. I'll do whatever I need, right? And that to me makes sense. And then once you find product market fit, or you define the values really well, or you say like, this is what we're going to stand for, and this is the type of business we're in, and like
Yeah.
once you understand like where you're going in the market and where you're positioning yourself, and maybe you hopefully have some level of product market fit, then I do think it makes sense to change the logo and the branding so that it matches that more perfectly. Um, I would say
I,
like that's one of the main reasons I think you should think about that.
I think first post our podcast last week, which was about positioning. I mean, I think it came down to the conversation about B2B and all stuff like that. To become a positioning it's one of those things that you need to have had, some experience, some years under your belt, some, you have to have had done the work to realize what are you great at and then specify what it is. Once you get to that point, you know many sense business, then maybe it's appropriate to like even think of a rebrand. But
Yeah.
then you also have this thing which I agree. If you're just starting a business, and it's like, you know what, I'm starting my new t-shirt business. Yeah, you don't probably need to spend a lot of money on your logo or getting your logo out there.
Or the
But
name.
there's also the especially if it is something that you are like, particular starting, you have a developed momentum. But I also do believe in the whole concept of, why do you want to have a really cool logo from the beginning, or a really good logo going forward, or hey, we were a $50,000 company, but now we have an angel investor that saw something on us, and now we're getting that $1 million into it. I think that that's a good time to really work into your, what is the suit that people are going to look at, the first impression of your brand, which is your logo, into what you're going to put into that work. I think
Yeah.
it's one of those. I mean, some people are gonna like, well, Rob, what do you know? Like, well, I just think of it as the old term. It's like, if you want the job, if you really want to show up for the job, you show up with your best suit. If you're gonna show up with something that you're like, well, you know what, we did that half pass, but check
Yeah.
this out. We do great engineering. It's just that our logo just didn't reflect that. It's like, kind of makes sense, but at the same time, like, why don't you just put everything nice in a row together? And if you think about it, I know that a lot of people are like, well, spending a lot of money in marketing at the beginning. It's not really a lot of money. It's just that what it is, a lot of money for who? If it is that mom and pop who's just opening shop, maybe spending the money is a lot of money. But if you're looking into like a company,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's tricky, man, because I think sometimes like the way you do things and what you do sort of says something. And so if we're an engineering company, maybe it's a good thing that our logo isn't like super designed. Maybe it's just very simple and it's like, a couple lines, and why, it is. Maybe if it's extreme, it might even raise questions like, oh, why is your logo just two lines? What is that? And then you get to tell a story. And so I don't think
that's
well,
purposeful.
I mean, yeah, you know what I mean though? Like I don't think it's black and white. I think like it really depends on how you want to position the company. And I would also argue it doesn't really matter if you've raised money or not. Like if you have money in the bank to do this thing or not. Like I think it's more about what we want to stand for in the market. I think because then it's really about like, okay, maybe we need a name change, for example. Like maybe we discovered our product market fit and our customer actually wants this, not this other thing we were building. And
What the fairy of the castle?
Right, so right. So like, okay, how do we let's move it so that it matches what it is we want to talk about. Maybe that makes sense. Like it really is a case basis.